Hi guys, welcome to another video. So today I'm at the point where I'm going to be describing or explaining the core opposition of the Leo and the Aquarius opposition in astrology. So this one's interesting. So I did already touch on this opposition quite a lot already actually in my Aquarius detailed explanation video if you watch that. Um, but I will just kind of rehash it again obviously in this video because I'm doing this opposition series. So this is the fifth actually opposition that comes up in the zodiac cycle, which is the Leo and the Aquarius. So the Leo is now this is similar actually to the Aries and the Libra opposition, but that, as I said in that video, if you saw that, is that is more in the setting of not necessarily a romantic relationship per se, but it's in the setting of a more one-on-one personal sort of setting, whereas the Leo and the Aquarius opposition is more in a group setting with more than just a one-on-one setting with two people, between two people. It's more like a big group setting where there's multiple people involved in it, but I'm using that as an explanation. So basically, if you're in a group, say like a friendship group or something like that, the Leo is obviously socializing with the people in the group, paying attention to them, but they want to be obviously the center of attention. They are more sort of focusing on themselves, like their internal thought processes, their thoughts that is going on at the time that they're not expressing to the other members of the group, they're keeping it to themselves. Those thoughts are centered more that they are having are geared toward or centered more toward uh, themselves in terms of their self-interest, like they are focusing more on themselves. Yeah, as I say, so they're kind of their thoughts are where is their social standing within the group, like what makes them the best out of every other person in the group, and they focus that way in terms of their mental energy. Aquarius focuses more on their standing in the group. They both focus on their own individuality as a person, how they separate themselves from the crowd, but the Leo does it in a more sort of righteous, egocentric sort of sense. Not saying it's always a bad thing, but the Leo does do that. They're focusing more on their social status in this setting, this group, but they're focusing on how to be the best and kind of almost one up everyone else in terms of being the most successful person in the group. Aquarius is thinking more about the everyone else in the group as opposed to themselves in the group. So Aquarius is kind of like focusing more on the other people, as I say. Yeah, so the Aquarius is more how kind of well. There's this, as I say, it's complicated. There's a paradox with the Aquarius sign because they want to fit in and integrate within the group. They're a lot about integration, but they also want to be an individual as well because they want to stand out from the crowd and have that sort of eccentric approach to life. So they kind of have both desires inside of them that they want to achieve. Um, but they don't focus so much, like their thought processes isn't so much geared towards self-serving, what's going to serve them. It's more geared toward what's going to serve maybe the planet or humanity in general, like the interests of the broader group in or of humanity. That's more geared towards what the Aquarius's thought processes are geared towards, if you kind of catch my drift here, guys. So their thoughts are more skewed away from themselves and toward other people, and the Leos is more their thoughts are skewed toward other people and not toward themselves. Um, Now, Leo is a traditional ruler of the fifth house in astrology, and this is a very nice house. It represents fun, it represents entertainment, personal pleasure, not in an indulgent, self-indulgent sort of way, which is more the second house, which is obviously traditionally ruled by the Taurus sign, actually. But the fifth house is more about fun, entertainment. Children come under the fifth house too. It's indulging your inner child sort of mentality to it or ethos to it. So that's kind of the themes of the fifth house. It's about fun, it's about entertainment, it's nothing too serious, is present within the fifth house. It's more enjoy your life sort of thing and relax and just do more of what you enjoy in your life. And then the Aquarius is the traditional ruler of the 11th house. So they are more about the themes, obviously, that the 11th house represents, which is also a nice house, but the 11th house is more about groups, it's about communities, it's about humanity, the world at large, the larger cluster, if you like, the larger group of humans, obviously, in humanity. That's kind of more the 11th house. Friendships, those type of relationships like that is also coming under the 11th house. So it's kind of like the whole core, the whole ethos of, or foundation of the opposition is that Leo is sort of this self image and this ego and discovering who they are as an individual based on the qualities that they possess. So their personality, their self image, or the way they present themselves to the world, how they think. And they want to be unique by being the best and nurturing their ego. They have this self image. And the Aquarius is more about they get their sense of pride and ego through reforming the world, through helping communities, uh, doing charitable work. That's sort of how they feel good about themselves, whereas the Leo feels good about themselves just by being who they are. So that's kind of the major theme of the different major theme of the opposition. Sorry, I can't really speak or explain well today, but I will. So I hope I'm not too bad. So yeah, so that's basically the whole theme of the opposition. I feel like Aquarius, they do have a slight ego breakdown. The sun is in a slightly weakened position within their sign. It is debilitated, detrimented, whatever way you want to use to describe it. So their sun is a bit weak. So their ego is a bit weak. So they fuel their ego through making a positive difference in society, giving a positive contribution to the world. And then when they see the results of all that hard work they've put in terms of the world actually becoming a better place for humanity at large or in general, that's what gives them their sense of pride and satisfaction and ego. Leo, it's more about they're ruled by the sun, so their ego is very strong. So they just validate their own ego by being themselves rather than doing anything spectacular or majorly excited, I guess you could say. They just kind of have this inner self love that's natural, and then they just keep on being themselves and staying true to themselves in their heart in order to keep up that natural self love and ego for themselves that they have, to preserve it, to stop themselves from losing that self confidence and love that they have. They nurture that ego and keep it going so that it never dissipates by being themselves and being an individual and leading others. They like to lead others as well. There's an interesting Pluto dynamic at play actually here with this opposition, in that Pluto is exalted in the sign of Leo and Pluto falls in the sign of Aquarius. So Leo has this strong sort of exaggerated need for a Plutonian theme. So they want to control people to a certain extent. They want to have power over other people to a certain extent. Not in the Scorpio sense, because they're not actually ruled by Pluto, they just exalt it. But they do strengthen the energies of the Plutonian vibes, the Plutonian planet. So Pluto does stand for control, it does stand for power over other people to an extent. It's about leading others, but you're kind of the one wielding the power, if you like. That is themes of Pluto. Leo does have an exaggerated need for these things because they do strengthen this planet of Pluto. Aquarius, then, the planet of Pluto is dead in their sign, it falls. So, because obviously they are opposite to Leo, as I say, in the opposition. So, Aquarius has this lack of the need to control other people's lives. They don't really care about what other people do with their lives. They just care about, they kind of stick with themselves. What they're doing is all they're really interested in. Aquarius, similar to Libra, actually, they can be quite chilled, they can be quite carefree because they are tolerant to the extreme. Both of them are actually, the Libra and the Aquarius. They kind of just let people roam free. They feel like authority is useless. They kind of just let people be an individual, to be themselves and stay true to themselves and their heart and just do whatever they want. And as long as it doesn't negatively affect the Aquarius, they're not going to care about what the other people are doing in order to be themselves. They're very lenient. That's a good key word for Aquarius. So they have this lack of desire to control and lead others and have power over others, although they still kind of have that slightly because of Saturn, which as a planet is similar to Pluto in the sense that it's another planet that wants or has this need to want to control others and have power over others and impose authority. But Saturn's more about authority, whereas Pluto is more about just control and leading others. It's just a slightly different dynamic, but the theme is very similar. And Aquarius is ruled partially by Saturn. So they do still have that kind of need for control, but Uranus kind of is the liberator, and that's the major sort of ruler of Aquarius. They want to liberate society and all of that. So they kind of lead more if injustice has been done and they want to campaign about something, about social, political change, these sort of themes. That's through Uranus influence on them. That's more what they do in that sense. So there is an interesting Pluto dynamic. I think the whole core of this opposition is it's kind of the axis of the ego, if you like. Whereas Leo, the ego is at its highest point, and it's like they have a good sense of self-identity, self-worth. That's what they have. And then the Aquarius is the opposite to that, of course. So the Aquarius is like they don't have this strong ego. The ego's more put away, but it's not that it's a bad thing that they have this slight ego breakdown. It's kind of needed and necessary because you need to have your ego broken down a little bit sometimes in order to be more available for other people, more charitable and humanitarian to the world at large. So in order to enable Aquarius to be like that, they kind of need to have their ego broken down ever so slightly, and that's kind of what the opposition is. It's like self-love is the most important thing in the universe, or love for humanity in general is the most important thing in the universe, but that comes at a cost of decreased self-love internally towards yourself as an individual person. So it's like Leo is, oh, self-love is super important. Other people can sort of look after themselves. As long as I look after myself, I'm fine and I love myself. That's all that matters. I'm not saying Leo's not generous. Don't take it that way. Because in a sense, Leo's actually more generous than Aquarius is. Because Aquarius can be quite cold-hearted, but Leo is not. Because another theme I would say of this opposition, actually, just for a second, is that there's a theme of emotional warmth versus emotional coldness and detachment. Aquarius is, as I say, not selfish in the slightest. They're very pure-souled, pure intentioned soul, and they care more about humanity at large. But the cost of that, the consequence of that, is that they're focusing so much on the planet or the world at large that intimate relationships with one specific person, they are not affectionate at all. They have this marked emotional detachment. Aquarius is very objective, scientifically minded. They have this marked emotional detachment. They are not at all emotional, not at all affectionate. And then Leo is exaggeratedly opposite. Leo is like exaggerating with every emotion. They are super affectionate. They are really over the top loving and caring. As long as you give them the attention that they deserve and that they need, they give you back a lot of it in response. It's like Leo has a very big heart, whereas Aquarius is, they have a very big heart, but they use it to help the world, not to help themselves or to be intimate with one specific person in a one-on-one relationship. So Aquarius can seem very cold, very detached, and Leo is the opposite. They are exaggeratedly warm. They're very, very obviously affectionate, versus Aquarius, the affection that they show people is not always obvious. It's very hard. You need to look quite well before you see their optimism or their generosity, because they hide it super well. It's not stereotypically generous. Like, it's not obviously generous. Like, a Leo will come and they will give you like money out of the blue and then just leave and let you have the money. Aquarius is not the type of person to do that. Their generosity is more about being thoughtful, thinking about your needs, considering your wants and needs, and trying to look out for you in that sense. But they're not showy with gifts or affection, so that's another core at this opposition. But it's about the ego, which is Leo side, versus the group of humanity, humanitarianism, which is the Aquarius side. So yeah, I mean, I hope I explained that opposition quite well. It is kind of like the theme of the self and nurturing self-love and appreciation for oneself versus appreciation for living creatures in general, like humanity at large, but the consequence of that, so that it's obviously not perfect because no sign is perfect, the consequence of being so caring toward humanity in general at large is that you're not as affectionate in a one-on-one sort of relationship as like the consequence, because the Aquarius is just, they think all the time, they're so caught in their head all the time, not grounded, and they kind of think, as I say, a lot about humanity at large, but the consequence of that is that they're not really present in a relationship, they're not affectionate in that sense, because they don't confine their affection to one person, they confine it to the whole world at large, the group of humanity at large. Leo's more like they don't care so much about humanity at large, so they have more of the affection available to pour into one person, like their lover, for example. But yeah, thank you for listening. I think I explained adequately here what I wanted to explain in terms of what I think the core of the opposition is with the Leo and the Aquarius square. So yeah, thank you for listening, tuning in, and I'll see you next time with the Virgo Pisces opposition. See you.